and here we're going to do a discussion on Yokai Watch. Bit of an impromptu discussion. The second game just came out in America, and it's been doing... I wouldn't say it's reaching the sales that they hoped it would hit. And I thought it'd be an interesting idea, seeing as I played the first one for Source Gaming, and Push lives in Japan, where Yokai Watch was a massive sensation.
Still is.
Just talk about... It still is. So just to talk about how the game is doing over in the West, and whether or not it was the correct decision to bring the game over in the first place, really.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to try and keep this as short as possible, but you know us.
Yeah, we can get off topic sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm just going to talk about the first game, or just the series in general. So Push, have you ever played Yokai Watch?
No, I have not.
You haven't touched any of them.
Yokai Watch, for me personally, it doesn't seem very appealing. I don't really care for the designs of the creatures, of the yokai, I guess I should say. The gameplay, I mean, it didn't really interest me.
No, see. So I get your point about the... So I think some of the yokai are designed fine. I just think that there's a lot of the same yokai. So it suffers from a big problem like that there are a lot of different yokai that are all the same design but just a different colour, and then this colour's the stronger version. Kind of like mob enemies in any RPG. And that did bug me a bit. I didn't mind it when I thought that you could fuse yokai, because in the first game you can fuse them, so you can get Jibanyan and fuse him with this sea urchin type yokai, and it creates a green Jibanyan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, this explains why, but actually no, not only certain yokai can be fused with each other, and not all of them just lead to color alts.
So, for example, there's Robonyan and Bushinyan and stuff. These are the Japanese names. I'm not sure if
I think Robonyan is the same. There's Shogunyan.
Okay.
And,
so, are those actually different yokai than Jibanyan?
yeah, so they seem to be. So from what I remember from the first game, you get Jibanyan. He's just one of the early ones you get, and he has 2 or 3 different evolutions.
Yeah, and Jibanyan is kind of
Whereas,
the secondary or the main character, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, he's a bit... Seeing as Whisper doesn't actually fight, I would consider him more like the Pikachu of the game. Because Whisper's more like a partner character. He's more like Navi or Fi from Zelda than he is a fighter. So Jibanyan has a few transformations like Roughnyan and whatever the green one was called that I don't remember now. But then you get I think the second game introduced a blue version of Jibanyan who's like a rival type yokai. And then the first game also had some of the super secret yokai that you had to do a bunch of challenges to get was like Shogunyan, who's just a really stronger version of Jibanyan and Robonyan, and I think there's one more as well.
But so you could have the same you could have Jibanyan and Robonyan at the same time?
Yeah, you could have both of them at the same time. Like my team in the end ended up having Shogunyan in it and Jibanyan's alt form at one point.
Yeah,
there was no problem with that.
For example, the Pokemon Company, they've done a lot of variations of Pikachu, and for me, those variations of Pikachu mostly stand out. There's usually different body shapes. They have different abilities. Sometimes they have different colors. But with the different Nyans, I think they look very similar. They look like it's just like a person wearing a costume.
Yeah, it does look a bit like how there was the Pikachu and then the different, I guess, the versions of Pikachu like Lucha Libre Pikachu.
Yeah, it's like the cosplay.
And Scientist Pikachu, yeah, the cosplay ones. Yeah, a lot of them do look like that, and I think that is an issue about it, because it feels like they're trying to just make as many of the same placeholder designs as they can to sell more yokai toys, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, it does have an appeal.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not denying that. We're just explaining our personal reasons, I should say.
Yeah.
Before we upset all the Yokai Watch fans.
The appeal was clearly big enough in Japan. Because it's everywhere. I saw it when I went to Japan. It's still there, and the third game just came out, and they just announced a third edition of the third game, which is the same thing they did with the second game, to make it even more like Pokemon, I guess, in its releases. But the game is bizarre and it's very Japanesey, and so the game came over out in the West. The first one came out last September. The second one just came out now in North America, and in Europe, the first one came out in April.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't nearly kicked off as well as it did in Japan. And I've seen various people giving reasons for why. Some people say that the gameplay doesn't appeal to kids. Some people say that the designs aren't as appealing, or that it's too weird and Japanesey. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's... people have been criticizing Nintendo for even attempting to publish the game over here, and I feel like it's a bit unfair to say, because the game has, in Japan it did really successful.
Yeah.
And it's followed a very similar mold to that of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it has all of the aspects to succeed, just like Pokemon did. But it hasn't. And why it hasn't is a good topic to discuss. Like, do you think it is too Japanesey for the game to succeed over here?
I think part of it might be just marketing. I don't know, like if collecting monsters is like a big. I'm totally was out of touch with American youth right now. I teach in Japan, so I know Japanese kids. I interact with Japanese kids every day for my job, but with American kids, I don't know what's happening for them. So please excuse my ignorance on this topic, but I think that a lot of kids, I don't get the image that they want to collect a lot of Pokemon or Yokai Watch anymore. Do you get that impression from kids in England?
A bit of a mixture. Like high school kids certainly. Younger kids though, I still find them, at least for Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Like I still know kids who collect Pokemon cards, for example.
Okay.
And I know uni students that also play a lot of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like it's like the stereotype that Pokemon's not cool when you're a teenager, and then when you grow up you go back into it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing you see people saying online, and it is true. But I don't see this with yokai. I know a lot of people, both adults and kids, who enjoy Pokemon. Mm-hmm. But I've only heard one other person really speak about yokai, and it was to complain about the designs of the monsters because he didn't think they were cute, like Pokemon were. So it's a weird thing, and I don't know how well the game was even marketed over here in England, because it only came out last August, and the anime started running at that time as well. And I might have seen a trailer for it, but it was nothing like what the Americans got. We didn't have any silly Reggie and Bill imitating yokai in our Nintendo Directs. We got nothing like that. We just got the president of Nintendo Europe doing the Yokai Watch dance.
The Western Nintendo Directs, is off topic, are very interesting, because the Japanese Direct, especially, I believe it's with Moriyama now, is his name, right? I
think so.
Yeah, he replaced Iwata. With Moriyama, it's basically like game, and then I watched the Western Directs afterwards for just to be informed on what's coming out in the other regions, and it's like game, gag, talk, game, gag. It's interesting.
Yeah, Europe's a kind of a mixed on that.
It's like the middle ground.
Game. Yeah, but Shibata occasionally does something silly. Mm-hmm. But like only on the odd occasion, like with the Yokai Watch dance he did. And maybe that is an issue. Maybe it's just being made to be too weird. Kind of the problem they had when advertising Earthbound all those years ago in America, where their campaign was to make it as strange as possible. Yeah, and it clearly didn't work for the game.
Yeah, and there's actually an article I wrote on Source Gaming called, Japan Isn't That Weird, It's the Internet, I believe. Yeah. And I don't know, like I whenever I see like marketing, Japan is so weird, look at this crazy kooky thing, I don't know, I get like annoyed. But other people, I think they're just like, yeah, that's Japan, I don't have any interest in that. When in reality they might actually be interested in it if it was just presented in a different way.
If it was presented in the correct way,
you're
trying to say. Yeah.
Not in the like, this is weird, check it out. It's more like, hey, this is really cool because they do this.
So would it be like for Yokai Watch, to take this back onto that sort of topic? Do you think that the marketing is the big issue for why the game didn't sell? Because like I said earlier, it has all the makings that Pokemon had. But whereas Yokai Watch is being advertised as really strange and going with like its names like Fleshy Souls and Bony Spirits, I think that's
with Pokemon. I believe part of the success was the fact that didn't the anime come first, and then that really got a lot of kids into it.
Well, the same thing has happened. The same thing has happened with Yokai Watch.
Okay, so they followed the Pokemon model.
Yeah, the anime came first by at least. It wasn't the same difference with Pokemon had, where the anime came like at least a few months first. But the Yokai Watch anime, I believe, launched about at least 1 month before the games actually did.
Yeah.
To follow that model, to get kids interested in it, and then launch this game to tie in with it.
I think
that part of marketing is the same. I think it's just the way they presented the game.
Well, the stories of the anime, they're very different, right? Because with Pokemon, it's you have the main character Ash, and he goes out and he is exploring on his own, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Yokai Watch, at least I've only seen one episode, to be honest, and it was much more like family, school life. At least the episode that I saw.
The game is a bit like that. The game is much more slice of life. Like the whole game is set in the player's town, unlike Pokemon, which is set in the whole world. And you walk around the town and search for yokai and help people's problems. And I thought it was a good idea when playing the game, because it got you familiar with the layout of the town, to this point where someone would mention something and I'd be like, oh, I know exactly where that is and how to get there.
Yeah, it's it's good world building, right?
Yeah, you start to get it characterizes the town and the inhabitants in the town rather than introducing new things constantly. But maybe that's not what people in America want for their games. Maybe the idea of Pokemon, where you're going out and exploring a large open world and wondering what you'll come across next, is more exciting than a slice of life storyline with all these spirits around it.
Like, just going back on a moment to how I would have marketed Earthbound is instead of saying, this game stinks, or look at this weird crazy game from Japan, I would have marketed it as a new interest in RPG. Like, this game breaks down RPG systems. It breaks all the what's that word?
The molds, breaks all the traditions.
Yeah, it breaks all the molds, breaks all the traditions, and it's really an innovative game. For Yokai Watch, maybe they could have done something like that. You've caught monsters, you've gone on journeys, but have you really explored them, kind of thing? Make it more about the connections.
Have you got to know the monsters? Because I guess that's the thing in Yokai Watch. You befriend the monsters, that you don't catch them. You become their friends.
Yeah, that's right.
So rather than focusing on what the weird, kooky features of the monsters are, you should focus on. They should have focused on creating that relationship and making people want to care about the creatures, I guess.
When I think about Western marketing of Yokai Watch, I think of the Bill Eden donuts, and I think of the tweet that Nintendo made about the smelly Yokai Watch that they blamed it for what's that? The airplane.
The one with its face.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that tweet.
Yeah, it made the plane have to land early because it smelled so bad. That's the only thing I remember from the Western marketing.
It's bizarre marketing. Well, I guess the final point to bring up for this discussion is: do you think that Yokai Watch was doomed to fail? Because a lot of analysts said at the beginning that it was too Japanese, it wouldn't pull it off, even though it succeeded in Japan and looked to be like the Pokemon. Do you think it was always doomed to fail, or do you just think the way Nintendo has handled the franchise?
I think Nintendo's in a weird position because Nintendo is publishing it in the West, but they also have their own series, Pokemon, and so you want to support Yokai Watch, but you also don't want it to get too big. I'm not saying they made it to fail on purpose or whatever. Not no tinfoil hats here.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, you know, they are in an awkward position with regards to the success of Yokai Watch, because a lot of people see it as one or the other. It's become like the new game war, you know. Like before, it was like Digimon versus Pokemon, and now it's Yokai Watch versus Pokemon. And I mean, like, it really doesn't have to be like that, but I think a lot of people see it like that.
That's probably true. It's probably quite true. Do you think there's any way for Yokai Watch to bounce back and become popular? Do you think the second game is... Because the first game had issues from a gameplay perspective, and I haven't played the second one because it's now in Europe. Hasn't even been announced for Europe yet, so we'll see if we get it. But I hear the second one improves in a lot of the places that the first one failed at. And I mean, if it does that, then it would probably be a much more enjoyable game. Because the first one was enjoyable, but it was nothing special, I didn't feel like. So do you think that the second one has a chance to bounce the series back into a more prominent position, or do you think it's already too far gone?
I mean, I think you could turn any series around. I don't think anything's really too far gone. It's going to be difficult, I think, because people are going to see the second game and then look back on the first game and see that it didn't do that well, I guess, and say like, oh, it's not a good series. But I think if Nintendo keeps on giving Yokai Watch a chance in the West, then there's a chance that it could latch on with customers. They just need to make sure that they inform everyone of the good points of Yokai Watch, I guess, and so that way people can make a decision on their own. All right, then. What do you think about that?
Well, I probably agree on that. I'm of the camp that I don't think Yokai Watch is a series that should never have been brought over here and was a bad decision to bring over here. I think that there was enough stuff that from a business perspective that Yokai Watch could have done well, and it clearly hasn't. And I don't know if that's a misreading of the market, or of a way that the game has been advertised poorly, or if it's just an unfortunate side effect of trying to get a game that's on a handheld system in an era where everything's more mobile. I believe there's a mobile phone game of Yokai Watch. I'm not quite sure.
Ones, aren't they? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean in the West, I think there's one. I think there's one that's been released in the West. I think, but I have no idea how successful it's been. But I'd be curious to find out, because even if that one's failing as well, maybe it is an issue that people just aren't bothered.
I think a lot of it is like Yokai Watch isn't a strong brand, like it's not a strong property, and so you have to kind of really sell that, that this is a high quality brand.
Arguably, nothing's that strong when it's first
this is a
released. You
good
have to build up
series for people to enjoy.
And I mean, I guess it didn't have the instant success that Pokemon did, but yeah, no. I guess if we keep it around to see. I'd be very curious to see if the third game ever comes out, though. Okay, guys. Well, I think that will just about do it for this discussion. We didn't want it to get too long. We just wanted to have a short chat about Yokai Watch and its potential future over here in the West, from someone who's played the game and someone who's experienced the rise in popularity. Yeah, the phenomenon that it is in Japan.
It's everywhere.
But But I mean, if you enjoyed this discussion or just like listening to it, then please like the video, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe to Source Gaming on YouTube and follow our website sourcegaming.info, and on Twitter all Source Gaming, just to stay up to date for interesting facts, translation, gaming speculation. When the NX ever gets announced, we'll surely be covering that. So 10 million years when it's finally revealed. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and goodbye, guys.